I recently hit over 100 subscribers and I wrote something on the community tab on YouTube, but I just wanted to thank you guys in person. It's really big deal to me to reach that number, and I hope it's just the beginning. And I want to thank everyone who subscribes when they come by. It's really nice to have you guys here. I really appreciate each and every one of you, and I hope that I can continue delivering videos that you guys enjoy. Today I'm going to do a bustier, and I tried this recipe once before and I struggled with it, but it was basically because I tried to deviate a bit too much, I think, in terms of the fabric choice. So this is the diamond bustier. It is this recipe, and I want to do this in a sort of see-through black fabric, like a mesh fabric, and I want the boning channels and everything to be like really visible, so to have a sort of where you can see the structure in a way. So I want to give that a go. It has padded cups, so for the padded cups I thought maybe I would have just one layer of a more beigey fabric that sort of fit the tone of my skin, and then another fabric on top, which is this one. It sort of has these see-through stripes that I like. I think it sort of fits with the theme of the see-through panels that will come underneath, but I don't want this directly onto the foam, because I don't think with like the white foam in the back that would look very nice. So I thought maybe I would use this duplex material and put that in the back to sort of give it more of a skin-like background. We'll see how it works. So let's give it a go. Okay, so I have cut all the foam pieces for the cups. I'm just gonna zigzag these together as so, and then the top band over here. So I'm placing the pattern pieces in the direction with greatest stretch, and for this duplex that is in this direction. It hardly stretches in this. So here I have what I will use as a lining fabric. It's a duplex this as well, just to make sure you don't actually see the cup padding. Okay, so I have the lining fabric and the main fabric lying here just to see that I have all of them. I'm gonna baste these two layers together, and then I'm gonna do like a stitch and flip sandwich method for the rest of the pieces. By the way, this fabric is just so hard to sew. It's just something about when you use like a regular needle, it just sticks to it. So luckily I have Microtex needles for the sewing machine. So I have basted together these two layers, and what I am gonna do now is just to do this stitch and flip method, where I put the lining on that side, the main material on that side, sew it all together, and then sort of flip both layers out. That way the seam allowance will be hidden. And I'm gonna do a whole lot of basting here because these fabrics are also very slippery, so I don't really trust just pinning it. Alright, so these are all basted together. So as I mentioned, I'm gonna try to just sew these all together, flip these two over, and see if we can't do like a stitch and flip method for the whole thing. Alrighty, so these are sewn together. I think this is gonna work out fine. So I'm just gonna remove the basting stitches and press it. Alrighty, so I have just stitched together the cup, the lower part of the cup that is, not the upper part, and I have top stitched these seams. So the next thing I'm going to do is just attach the top part of the cup, and I'm going to do that in the exact same way that I have done so far. The cups are finally finished, well, at least the fabric and padding individually, and what I'm gonna do now is just to attach the fabric onto the padding. The cups are finished. I just pressed them. I hope they will look okay and that they won't warp in any way. I felt like I kind of stretched the fabric maybe more than I should have over the padding, so that it's sort of, if you can see here, it sort of drags on it a bit, but hopefully that won't be a problem. And now it's time to start working on the frame. And for that, I'm going to use a completely transparent material. So I'm going to use this power mesh, I think, for the back, just to give that a bit more stretch and durability. And I'll be using this. It's also a mesh, but it's non-stretch mesh for the panels, the frame. I've turned in this sort of a flap in the center front. Since the back is elastic, I can't really use a bias binding on top that's not elastic, so that my plan to just fully bind off the entire thing all at the same time won't really work. So what I am going to do instead is to just do the binding on top of the cup like the instructions ask for. So that is what I'm going to do next. This is kind of the wrong side. You see here that we have the seam allowance here on the inside. And the thing is, I want the boning channels to be visible on the outside and not just visible, because I'm thinking if I want them to be visible, I want them on the outside. And if I'm still going to cover this seam right here, I might as well cover the seam allowance and let that be the outside, you know? I'm sure you do. I'm ranting a bit here. I think I might do what I just said, putting the boning channels, one like up the middle here, two on the sides, one over the seam here, and then afterwards start working on the upper edge and so on. I am going to make boning channels out of my leftover bias binding, I think. I just did a small test, so I have a piece of bias tape here and I've just folded it over and stitched it. I'm just gonna trim down the seam allowance even more, turn it out and just see how it will look to use this as the boning channel. It's a bit wrinkly, but I'm gonna try and just to see if it could even work. So I really do like the look of it, and I think it would even out more as well when you get the boning into it. I kind of like it. It's not perfect, but I think I'm gonna give it a try. But that means I have to do this before doing anything to the top edge, since it's on the outside. Okay, so these are ready for. I'm gonna save these for last, just because I have to consider the placing a bit more first. I am just gonna top stitch very closely to the edge on all of them so that the boning can fit nicely through. Leave enough room for that, so I have to stay really close to the edge on both sides. Here are the boning channels, and I'm really happy with these. The one thing I am unsure about now, so normally you would have these with these picots, and I just feel it just feels so underwear-esque to me, and it is, so that's to be expected. But I know you can get bias binding that is elastic, so maybe I will go for that to give it a different kind of look. I'm still not sure entirely how to place the middle or the bias binding under the cups. I'm just gonna eyeball it, but I'm just going off of my cutting mat here. I'm just going to sew these again. I'm just going to do that off camera because I'm just going to do the same as I did here. I have just received some elastic bias binding. What I'm going to do now is just to bar tack the top of the boning casings, and after that I'm gonna put on this elastic bias binding, and then we're gonna put in the cups and finally put on the back clasps. As far as I've understood, you should stretch this slightly when sewing it on, even if this is a stretchy material. I'm now just going to baste this, fold it over, and then zigzag it in place afterwards. Both the fold over elastics are sewn on, so the next part will be to install the cups before doing anything else, which is always really exciting. So I have the finished cups here, and I am just going to pin them on, make sure that everything matches up, and baste quickly, and then we'll take the rest on the machine. Alrighty, so this is pinned in place. I'm just going to sew around and trim off some of the excess fabric here and there. I was looking at one thing here, and that is the main boning channel in the middle, because the thing is, after I've sewn the cups on, I'm gonna sew the underwire channel, and that would cross this boning channel. So what I think I'll have to do is to just sew that underwire channel up to here and then stop it there. So next up, the underwire casing. So I am just going to pin it along the edge here, sew it to the edge, and then fold it out and sew it in place afterwards from the outside. There we go. So I'm gonna take this to the sewing machine and just sew along the inner edge before we flip it down and sew it down from the outside. One thing that I failed to think about is the fact that because this padding is white, when I turn this out, you get this white peeking through, and that is not ideal. So we'll have to do something about that. After having a look, I think maybe what I'll do is cut off a piece of this bias binding because it's so thin and malleable. Hopefully that will work. And what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to hand baste this to the outside here so that I don't really have to think anymore about it as I continue. I think this should work. It does add some bulk, but very little because it's so thin. That looks a lot better from the outside. You don't have this white peeking through. And what I'm going to do now is just turn this out. Okay, so first top stitch just along the inside edge here. Alrighty, so both the underwire channels are sewn in place. So what I'm gonna do now before I start working on the boning is to just check that the underwire actually fits. That seems to be fitting nicely. One thing I am wondering about is this part. If you guys can see here, the minute I put in the underwire, you get this fold here. I'm gonna put in the boning, and then we'll see once that is done. I'm gonna use a 1 centimeter, I think, allowance here that I'm gonna stay within. So we need 2 centimeters up here that are free of boning. That way we can sew again over here. Come on. Come on. Okay, I think it's gonna work, but it's really, it's only just. Okay, I think that looks nice. So I'm just gonna do the same for the rest as well and make sure I don't go over that threshold. So that is all the boning in, and I can start putting on the waistband. I tried with this part of the band slightly tightened, and that did not work at all. It got way too tight even though I tried it beforehand. So instead I am just going to pin it on again and not drag it at all. So I'm just gonna pin it again and sew it on like before. A zigzag first, quite close to the edge, fold it over, and then do a 3-way zigzag over on the other side. I don't think I need to pin anything else. I'm just going to take this to the sewing machine, do a 3-step zigzag, and then we'll work on the clasps. So I have the bottom band all inserted, the elastic, and now it's time to put on the hooks and eyes. So what I've done so far is that I've just measured 6 by 3 on the eyes, and similar with the hooks. So what I'm going to do now before I start cutting into this is that I'm going to bar tack on the sewing machine. So I'm just going to do a straight stitch with short stitches, and then a zigzag again with short stitches just to secure this edge before cutting. And I'm also going to secure this edge. Alrighty, the bar tacking is finished on both sides, and I am gonna cut it at this point, just below the bar tack on both sides, making sure I don't cut the actual seam. There we go. Alrighty, so these two pieces are ready. This goes on this side and the hooks go on the other side. So I'm just going to try to slip this on first. This part needs to be folded around as so. these can hurt the machine bed, so having them up, facing up, and using a zipper foot instead will make sure it doesn't hurt your machine. Alrighty, so now we're just going to sew this on this side and then on this side. This is the final step, so I'm really looking forward to seeing the finished product. So here is the finished product. It is not on me as a safe for work measure, but I'm really happy with the finished product. I will wear it mostly over clothing because it fits better that way. If you guys like this video, please leave a like below. I also hope you consider subscribing. If you want to see more of this type of content, please leave a comment below if you have any input as to videos you want to see, projects you want me to do, and so on. And I hope to see you guys in the next video.